Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an extremely special episode. This episode leaves a special place in my heart because for once we're covering something that we wouldn't normally cover in an episode, and that is the ancient past buried underneath the dirt. If you think the seat I'm in looks familiar, this is GRUGCRAFT Season 1. Well, almost. This is not exactly the same world I was in with my friends. This is just an identical seed. And because of this, I figured it would only be right if I covered every single little relic that made this series special. And you may be wondering, why am I covering this? Why am I covering GRUGCRAFT? Well, unfortunately, my attempts to revive the series were ultimately at a fault. So, to celebrate instead, I figured we would cover the old stuff. We would go back to original GRUGCRAFT and explore why this world was so special. This is a map of the entire world. As you can see, I was able to cover two 4x4 maps, which covered the length of my base right here, where you can see the little green arrow, and look at that little purple spot there. That's actually Infinite's home right across the way, the Mushroom Island. And if you take a look over here at the other side of the map, you can see a lot of things, frankly, but one thing that sticks out the most is this giant patch of ice. This is Antarctica. It was XD's base for a while, and I was never able to formally cover it in episode 1 because we hadn't really gotten to that point yet. But, believe you me, we are going to take a good look at Antarctica today. It's going to be especially significant when talking about the portal room. There are other various locations on this map that are also important. As you can notice, there is a little jungle down there, just across the way from the giant lump of ice that is Antarctica. And this jungle was going to be significant for one very major reason, but I'll cover that in a bit. Now, I'll admit, a map of the entire world is very important, but this little section here is probably the most important to me, the most special. This was the original location of my base. Now, it's so special to me too because it wasn't just my base, it was also Granny Rita's base, and we together renovated it and made it just perfect. Here you can see there's actually a neat little bird's eye view. I actually do happen to have an original bird's eye view screenshot, so here it is. Now, base aside, I think it's important to cover what this is. Well, I may or may not have mentioned earlier that there is a jungle right over there, and because of that, because of my explorations, I was actually able to find the proper jungle saplings and bring them home with me. And as an act of celebration, I planted a grand tree and lit it up with torches. I actually called it the Christmas tree because it looks so bright and vibrant at night. Gosh, I mean, just look at that thing. It was definitely a beacon of light whenever I was out traveling. Well, well, well. To think that the entirety of the series started here, in this island. And here is Infinite's old base. Not exactly his old base, but a nice little memorial. And here we actually have one of the many pedestals that I've set up around the map. And as you can see here, I used a mushroom to represent the islands, and a yellow coral to represent sponge, because that is, in fact, what Infinite's skin used to look like. Now, here's an important part of the island for you. I don't actually have proper footage or screenshots of this, but I actually put a big border around this area, and the reason was I wanted to renovate it and turn it into a mushroom stew. Yes, I was going to create a huge wooden bowl, which would probably take millions of blocks of resources, and possibly even change up the water a little bit to look more like stew. Unfortunately, that was a dream project that never ended up coming true. You know, since I'm here, I might as well cover one very important thing, and that is the nether portals. This little ditch down here, I wasn't able to renovate, is actually the location, the exact location of the original Nether portal. Now, this is kind of nostalgic. You guys probably remember in the original video, the very last thing I did is I created a Nether portal, and it was right there. And the whole mine actually became huge. Like, I mean, it was just a tunnel system, you know? One huge gap followed by just several strips, and yeah, it was really something. Now I believe it's time to embark and leave this island temporarily because I need to cover some more parts of this magnificent map. I love this seed. Now, this area over here never became important, but it is really cool to me because I was originally going to use this as my sort of island of timber. This was going to be the place where I renovated it, perhaps even installed buildings. I never got to do any of those things, unfortunately. I did install a little pedestal, though, depicting the trees, and I think it looks rather nice. There actually used to be a nether portal here, but I don't remember the exact location, so I wasn't really able to make a replica. Now, talk about importance. This was a staple in me and Granny Rita's adventuring of this world. This, my friends, is the Great Continent. And now, the Great Continent is so important because it basically covers the entirety of GrugCraft. The actual base that we stayed in was surprisingly disconnected from the continent, but other important locations, which I'm going to show, are primarily here, which is why I value the Great Continent as the heart and soul of GrugCraft. Besides the base. The base is really kind of the soul. This, unsurprisingly, is a dark oak forest, and it was one of the many scattered across the map. Now, this one is important to me because, as you can see over here, there is a small little ravine. Now, what is so important about this? Well, riches and glory, my friends, riches and glory. This was the ravine where me and Granny Rita made a name for ourselves. Once we had gotten fortune pickaxes, we set to this mine and we dug out every single bit of diamonds we could. And Granny Rita, let me tell you, he collected, I want to say, at least 11 stacks of iron ore. He's kind of obsessed with the stuff between you and me. Now, to move away from this little pedestal and on to the next one. Now, if this village isn't a landmark, I don't know what is. This was probably the largest village in the map, and extremely important for the reason that I was actually trying to collect villagers from this place and repurpose them for working, you know, just working, nothing too extreme. Unfortunately, trying to transport them across the Nether was not an easy task, and I ended up losing several villagers and eventually just quitting. You know, I'm actually pretty impressed at the fact that the original me from GrugCraft was able to collect all this map stuff without an elytra. I mean, that's a lot of ground to cover on foot. Okay, see this swamp here? This is kind of funny to me, because I always used to joke with myself that, like, the adventurer spilled coffee on his map, and those were, like, the little spots. But no, these are actually the swamps, and I have to say, they don't look particularly flattering on the map. Like, I think the seed could have done without them, but you get what you get. For the record, what I'm about to show you was going to be one of the most important parts of GrugCraft before the whole series went up in flames. So, prepare yourself. As you can see, we're coming upon a little spruce village, and, aha! Human civilization. Besides that, my human civilization. This is one of the most important landmarks because this little location was eventually going to become a grand castle, and it was huge. I mean, I don't even know what I was thinking. I probably didn't have the resources for it, but the original portal that led to this area was actually this one. I had to create two to make it symmetrical, but this truly was the original portal that I used to get here. You know how much easier it is to travel around with an elytra? I'm keeping this thing on. And And as the blue sea renders in the distance, so does this barren-looking, frozen area of land. This, my friends, is Antarctica. Welcome, one and all, to this frozen tundra. Antarctica is super important, and it is actually technically separated from the Great Continent. It is its own continent, and it belonged entirely to my good friend XD. Now, currently, I'm in the middle of an abandoned village, and now this village is very significant to Antarctica because it contains, in my opinion, probably the most important and interesting part of this icy continent. Sure enough, buried underneath the ice and snow was the stronghold itself. Now, I found this thing myself, to be perfectly honest, but I was never really able to fire up the portal because, you know, I was saving that for my friends. I always thought, you know, luck comes to those who wait, but instead, only misfortune. That could be said about most of GRUGCRAFT. I'm currently looking for the stronghold. I found a library. I'm not entirely certain what's in here. Fire Protection 3, I do suppose that would have been pretty good, to be honest. In all honesty, libraries are probably my favorite landmark in Minecraft. I'm really close. Would you look at that? I found the stronghold, and no eyes in the frame. That seems awfully familiar. You know, this is actually a very scenic looking portal room. I don't think the last one looked exactly like this. But, I mean, just look at these little lava lakes in here. This is just wonderful. What a nice cherry on top. A golden apple in a chest. I'm getting out of here, man. Alright, well, that's done with. Now, I do have something rather special coming later, but I think it is important to mention that this little area here was my timber collecting area. It was, well, you know. I mentioned earlier that I was going to make a giant bowl of mushroom stew, and the place I was going to get the materials for the bowl actually were entirely within this forest. I figured that because the trees went on for so long, I'd have materials for days. Now, the ice spikes are very important. This was one of the main locations for a nether portal. I didn't actually recreate it, but this was kind of the area where I was able to teleport in. And now, this village was the first home of my good friend XD. He made his residence here in one of these houses. And sure enough, here's the pedestal honoring his residence here. The honeycomb represents bees, which he did have a Barry B. Benson skin. And the blast furnace actually represents the house he was in. He lived in one of these houses with a blast furnace. I believe it might have been this one. Oh, not this one. I'm not entirely positive. He lived in one of these style houses, that's all I know. He had lived in this village for quite some time before he decided to actually move out, and since then he had moved into this kind of foresty area. Okay, this isn't the place where XD lived, but I just gotta point this out. This is an absolutely amazing looking village. I mean, imagine making your residence here in like this igloo. Look at this view, dude. Look at I mean, look at this. It's right on top of a lava fall. That actually looks kind of dangerous for whatever villager is living here. But my God, man, this place. Oh, look, it's my family. What, child? What? How dare you? You're burning the poor bear. What? Did you see that? That evil bear cub tried to kill his own mother. I'm mentally scarred. Now, if we can find the pedestal, haha. Now, this was the second location of my good friend XD, as represented by the honeycomb. He lived within this quaint little village in the forest. Now, I believe he lived in one of these houses. All I know is that the villager that worked for him was an armorer, so he got some pretty good stuff from that dude. We actually had a pretty cool route through the nether that we took to get to this place, and it was often kind of perilous, but also really scenic. As is usually the case with the scenic route. Now, as I stand on the edge of this body of water, you may be thinking, where are we? Is this the ocean? Well, actually, if you look at the map, this is a lake. This is all a lake. Now, this was probably the biggest lake in GRUGCRAFT, and now I don't really have names for these things, but if any of you have any suggestions, please, please do let me know. Now, I've seen lakes in Minecraft before, but this one is just a monster. Like, I can't even render all of it. This thing is just humongous. I remember this place. I had a lot of adventures here. Fun little memories. As you can see by the map, Antarctica is surrounded on all sides by taiga, and actually some areas of plains, and even a swamp down here. Talk about another cool village. This one was surely a landmark, even though I didn't really devote a pedestal to this place. It just couples so nicely with the ice spikes over here and the peaceful little village covered in snow over here. And sure enough, here is the swamp, standing out on its own. This was a big part of this part of the map, and technically it doesn't really belong to the Great Continent either, since, you know, it would have to be attached. However, as I make my way across the ocean, we can see another area of land here, and sure enough, this is the Great Continent once again. Welcome, my friends, to the GRUGCRAFT jungle, probably one of the coolest and most scenic parts of this whole map. I made sure to gather a large quantity of bamboo when I was here, trust me. This jungle is actually also how I ended up getting the Christmas tree, as I called it. Largely, a lot of the cancelled GRUGCRAFT Season 2 project took place in a jungle, and let me tell you, it is not a great place to live. Now, I don't believe I actually have a pedestal for this, but this village here is important because this was the first village I found when I stumbled across the jungle. I was traveling through this taiga biome here when I found a nice-looking village, and as I came closer, I noticed something peculiar off in the distance. Very tall, scenic-looking trees. And sure enough, as I came closer, I realized, oh my god, I finally found a jungle. Compared to some other worlds I've been in, this one was actually not too hard to find. Now, one of the few things I actually have named in this map is this giant body of water right here. This is Grug Bay. Now, this was probably one of the biggest bodies of water that wasn't the ocean, and it's not a lake either, because as you go out this direction, you will discover that it is connected to the ocean. Now, the reason the jungle is so significant, in my opinion, is because, well, you know, there is an ancient GRUGCRAFT sort of landmark that I wanted to put in any GRUGCRAFT world possible. Now, I've never really openly talked about the lore of GRUGCRAFT, but it all started with Season 0, which was hosted by Granny Rita, and I never recorded any footage, and even if I did, I wouldn't have it. But basically the story is, during that world, I made a blueprint. I constructed in a creative mode world a giant skyscraper of sorts, and it was made of like white concrete and quartz and glass. And this thing was just a beast. It was super tall, it was cylinder shaped, it was awesome. Now, originally I was gonna build one, and I was gonna build it somewhere around here, just in this general bamboo forest area. And it was most likely going to overlook this little lake of sorts right here. It would have taken many, many resources. The thing about Season 0 that made it so easy, per se, is that we had a cloning glitch. We could just make infinite numbers of blocks. In GRUGCRAFT Season 1, we got all that ourselves. I mean, no guarantees. XD could have been out there somewhere in Antarctica cloning things. I have no idea. Needless to say, that cloning glitch has since been patched, so we wouldn't be able to use it now if we wanted to. I'd say this looks a bit more familiar. I want to emphasize that there's probably dozens more details that I've left out. Like that little glowing cave behind me. That was significant because that's where I tried to make the portal the first time. Or this large section of ocean behind me because that's where I constructed my railroad. Honestly, as much as I'd like to show everything, there is only one more little detail I want to show before we're done. The peak of one of the highest mountains in GRUGCRAFT, marked perfectly with a singular coal ore and a torch, at my courtesy. The unfinished GRUGCRAFT Season 1 Episode 2 did feature a scene with me placing a torch around here. And believe me, it was special because it finally gave me a view of this beautiful land. I miss this world so much. I miss being able to travel through the mine to the monster spawner where I could collect experience points. I miss being able to use my fortune pickaxe and earning thousands of diamonds. I miss all that. Yes, you know, it's sad. It's sad that all of this is gone. I'm upset by it. I think about it a lot. But you know what? The reason I did all of this in the first place is because I found something the other day on my computer, something that, in my opinion, is worth all the money in the world. It's priceless. I mean, I found GRUGCRAFT footage, lost GRUGCRAFT footage from Season 1, and of all the places it could have been, it was on my computer. And so, I figured the best way to go about this was to devote an entire video to this exact moment. So, after showing you the entirety of this world, it's only right if I showed you the footage. I'll go through the whole thing with you and explain it as I go along, because there is a lot to take in. It actually shows the Nether. For once, it shows the Nether, because I don't have a proper Nether here. This is just a physical world tour of the overworld, and that is the best I can give you. I'm gonna miss this world forever, but I know there is another world that I am soon to embark on. Okay, this is the official footage that I found on my computer. Now, I want to give you a little background. Okay, so for one, this was 1.14. This was not only pre 1.15, this was before the Nether update, long before the Nether update. Now, the reason I have this footage is because the only way for me to record time lapses is to have one person actually doing the work, which would be the computer version, and one person recording, which would obviously have to be the actual PlayStation me. So most likely I went on my computer account to do some work for a time lapse. I never ended up actually doing it though, or if I did, I captured it on my PlayStation instead. Okay, so as I spawn in, you may notice I am in a snowy tundra area. Now if you remember, that abandoned village right there is exactly the same where the stronghold is, and all the chests that are out, those are for collecting wood. Most likely for the giant bowl that was going to make up the mushroom stew structure that was going to be around the mushroom island. Alright, so as I move to the back of the village, you can notice I am entering the Nether portal. Now, in the museum, I actually did end up replicating that same exact portal block by block. Unfortunately, for me, it does not spawn in the same picturesque Nether place. Now, as you can notice, I am in a Nether fortress. Now, this fortress was rather large. If you were to go off to the right and not down the ladder, you would find the portal that leads to XD's base, but unfortunately I did not go that direction. This little ladder of sorts actually leads back to my base. Unfortunately though, I'm not exactly going to get back to my base the conventional way. Okay, so I give my inventory one last good check, and I figure there's nothing good in here, so I take a leap. I take a leap off into the lava, and right as I respawn, there it is. The base itself. I just can't believe right now it's just a wall. Okay, so as I turn around here, you're able to catch just a few frames of this place, and off to the right, you can see sort of the area where the chests were, and right in front of you, you might have caught a glimpse of kind of just the wide accessory of anvils and furnaces and other accessories. That's the only thing you can see of the base thus far, and the rest of it is just me descending into the mine, which, trust me, when you catch a glimpse of this place, you're just gonna see how much it's grown. Okay, so as I enter the underground, you might have caught a little glimpse at Infinite's hidey hole still there, but look at the size of this mine. Okay, so in front of you, you can see sort of the tunnel that the Wither dug out, and to the right, you can see various little strip mines that I constructed over the years. But yeah, when me and Granny Rita fought the Wither, that thing pummeled through so many blocks, and we were afraid it was going to wipe out everything. Like, it was a legitimate fear at the time. Fortunately, though, it did not. And actually, you can barely see that tunnel rendered down a long ways. Like, that's how much I made that thing. And then there was a separate tunnel off in that direction that kind of led to the mob spawner where I collected my experience points. Well, anyway, as you can see here, I am in the Nether Fortress, which, by the way, was at that exact spawn. I wish I could have shown you the exact moment when I spawned in, but But anyway, I use these little areas of cobblestone on the ground just to guide me. And back there was the blaze spawner, which I was originally going to turn into a farm, but unsuccessfully. Anyway, as you walk along this little cobblestone path here, you can see a little structure in the distance. Now that is the exact portal location of the castle, and you'll see for yourself. Seeing the nether before 1.16 is weird. It's also interesting seeing all the other cobblestone structures in the distance. I probably made multiple other routes to different places. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those led to one of the villages. Okay, but anyway, here I am. Oh, and yeah, as you can see over there, that is me. That's my main PlayStation account. And those stone brick towers were originally going to be the foundations of the main towers of the castle. And yeah, just the towers for the outside wall. Okay, so here I'm experimenting with the time-lapse, and this is even before making the first GrugCraft video. So before then, I was kind of just trying to record with my computer, so I'm kind of just using this computer account to get to a good place so that I can actually record my computer account doing work on the castle. And here I am at the top, and you can just kind of see the scale, and you can see the portal, and you can just see all the towers. It's beautiful, and here I am just turning off my hand because I think, well, yeah, now's the time to record. And that's actually how I ended up getting this recording, is I think I was just kind of, just testing out the recording, just loosely getting a hang of it. Okay, so that's all of the clip. Unfortunately, that was all I was able to capture. But to be honest, if that's it, I feel very lucky. I mean, like, I can't believe that I was able to capture so much nostalgia, and I figured it would only be right if I shared it with you. So, I'm sorry I wasn't able to show you just the wonderful experience of GrugCraft, and I hope you were able to get something out of watching this, because I know I did. Well, that was a bit of an emotional experience, and if you've made it this far, I appreciate that, because GrugCraft is something special to me. It always has been, ever since I lost it, and I would like nothing more than to have it back, except I know the truth. GrugCraft as a series is gone. I can't bring it back. I've tried before, but it won't work. So, instead of looking backwards, I figured the best route instead would be to look forwards. So that's why I've prepared something very special for you. In a few days' time, GrugCraft won't be a series anymore. But in its place, a new series will rise. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen, for NomadCraft, the newest survival single-player series coming to my channel. I'm so excited to finally do a new series, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I do. For now, have a good day, and have a good night, and enjoy this very special trailer from me. See ya.